once you've properly desensitized your dog to the Halti and you feel like they're willing participant in this activity, now you can actually move to the second stage, which is going to be introduction, a little bit more handling, and the introduction of the leash and how to help your dog learn to walk appropriately on the leash, along with some really important safety tips and tricks when using a Halti. Any tool can be dangerous when used the wrong way. This tool isn't an exception. So there's going to be a really important safety notice. Once you get your dog's leash, that will be really important to make sure that you don't cause injury while using this tool. So we'll go back and we will set expectations. So let's pretend we're going for a walk. So I'm going to set expectations. She knows to default sit when this is out. I'm going to still hold the treat. I'm going to let her put her head in the Halti herself while I clip it and get everything attached. Now, the next step is this bottom dangly attachment with the hook is actually what is going to go back to and clip to the loop on their collar. So what it should look like, what it should like is there should be this little loop area. And now for a Halti, where the leash gets attached, it gets attached to this area right here. Let me pull her head up so you can see. It gets attached at this middle O-ring right here. So let me grab a leash. So again, even for leashing, you want to make sure that you keep your dog in a sit the whole time. So this is what you practice. So I'm going to give her a treat while I leash her. Now, here are a couple of tips and tricks. It is not abnormal when you introduce the Halti to a dog for the dog to like nosedive and want to paw at it to get it off. Here's the thing. The more you allow that behavior, and the more the dog is going to want to do that. And then two, they may potentially get it off their nose, especially shorter snout dogs. So you want to make sure that if they nosedive and they're trying to pull it off, just put a little pressure, pull up. As soon as they stop fighting, you want to have a treat and you want to give them a treat right away. So the goal is, nope, you're not going to get anything by doing that. But if you stop pulling and you just look up, now I'll give you a treat. Okay. So the other thing is, if they are fighting, try not to use your hands to physically manipulate and force the dog or pull or try and like maneuver them as they're kind of fighting with it, because the more you engage physically with that behavior, the more they're going to want to do it. One of the key things for safety with when you are introducing a Halti, and this is super important, you always want to make sure that the leash is in between you and the dog. You never want the leash to be on the outside with the dog in between. The reason for this is if a dog took off and the leash was outside, what it's going to do is it's going to crank their head awkwardly. And this is where injuries can happen. Now, if the leash is between you and the dog, and she took off, it's going to be a little gentler because it's going to pull her back into you, and it's not going to create a weird movement of her neck and potentially kink their neck and injure them. So just make sure that the leash is always between you and the dog while you practice. Another good tip and trick with Haltis is sometimes, depending on the size of the dog, the area in between where the leash hooks up and the collar, there's too much, and so dogs will paw and they will get their paws stuck in here. So what I like to do is I will take where the leash clips on the O-ring and I will attach this back to their collar O-ring. So what I'm doing is I'm basically lessening the space in between, so there's less chance of a dog to get their paw in and try and get the Halti off. Now, for a dog that's already acclimated, you can just leave the leash attached at the middle O-ring, and that will work just fine. So that wraps up how to introduce the Halti to your dog, along with a couple of tips and tricks, and the biggest safety thing of making sure the leash is always in between you and your dog when you are using this tool. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and or share, especially if you think this is a tool one of your friends or family might need for their own dog. You can also find more interesting videos or information on our social media channels at Fur Babies and Friends AZ. But that wraps this up. If you are struggling with Halti introduction or even leash walking behaviors and you live in the Phoenix area or the Phoenix West Valley, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help you get the tool introduced appropriately and help you take the walk back from your dog so you actually enjoy walking your dog and it's not this chore or something that is overly frustrating anymore. So good luck and have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.